it's Jess here and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a book haul. So I have some physical books here. I'm gonna try to take a photo with this. So yes, I have some physical books here, which is like 7 of these are from the same series, and then we have a hardcover book, and then we have a bunch of audiobooks because that is my main way of reading books. I just find it so much easier and I can multitask while I read them too. So let's get into the books that I hold. The first is 1 through 7 of Wet Moon by Sophie Campbell. These are graphic novels. So I'll show you the first one. These are graphic novels, and I actually used to own 1 through 6. So I think this first one came out in 2004. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if there'll be a date of first printing or not, but these are the newer editions. I think they're still like not easy to find. My dad bought these for me for Christmas, and they're all on Amazon except for number 4 was ended up not being available. So I bought number 4 from Abe Books. So you might have better, if you're interested in buying these, you might have better chance on Abe Books. But yeah, I think the first one's from 2004 because I was actually following Sophie Campbell as an artist since like 2002. I followed her on DeviantArt, and I just love her art. She actually replied to some of my art back in the day, so it was like one of the big moments of my life. And I actually also own an art print. I'll put a picture here next to me of one of the characters that are in the books called Myrtle. And I have that hanging up in my living room. So basically Wet Moon is about a goth girl, Cleo Lovedrop, and she just started at art school in the fictional place of Wet Moon. It's a swampy college town. It's supposed to be based off Savannah, Georgia, I believe, which is where Sophie went to art school. And basically it's kind of mostly character driven. It's pretty slow burning, so if you're not interested in a slow burn character piece, you might not be into these. But basically she heads off for college. She's haunted by a melancholic past, specifically her mysterious ex-boyfriend Vincent, whom she can't stop running into. But everyone in Wet Moon has their secrets, even Cleo's closest friends. And there also, as the books progress, there becomes a mysterious attacker who attacks people on campus with a knife. And so that becomes the big thing that happens in Wet Moon. But I really love it. And if you love the goth style, you're probably into this, or you're interested in that kind of thing. I'll show you the art style changes from the first book to the last. So this is the first book. Trying not to like give any spoilers, but beautiful. Sophie wrote and drew everything. And then I'll show you the 6th book because there should be less spoilers in here. But you can see how the art style has changed. She becomes a bit more baby bubbly like, but I think that's really cute. But basically, I should say I rebought these, and I re-asked them for Christmas because I only had 1 through 6 originally, and then like I started uni by the time, and 7 took a long time to come out, and I started uni by then, and I just didn't have time to read them anymore, so I never owned it. And yeah, so a big cliffhanger happens at the end of 6, so I really wanted to find out what happened in the 7th and last book, but I felt like I really needed to reread them, and I left my originals in Australia. And I don't mind getting new ones because Sophie is actually a trans woman, and the books that I had were in her dead name, so it's probably better off that they're gone. We should have like her proper name on her books, so I'm so glad her publisher republished her books in her actual name. So yeah, I'm really excited. Look how 3 is like extra thick. compared to the others, but I'm super excited to reread these. And I don't know, if you're into sort of a gothy slice of life with a little mystery, a little melancholy, and some really cute characters, like look how cute. So you have all the characters in the back and some information. You have Cleo and her best friend Trilby here is hilarious. I will say these are definitely for, one of my favorite characters is Mara. I'm just like, I get Mara, she's so cool. But I will say that these are for mature audiences. There is like nudity and violence in these, so they're for adults. But that is the Wet Moon series. These are all done, so it's just the 7 of them. But I'm excited to reread those and finally finish the story. And the next physical book I have here is Garth Marenghi's TerrorTome. Curl up with this book and die. And I got a version that was signed by the author. So exciting. So this is a comedy horror parody, basically. Garth Marenghi doesn't exist. He is a fictional character made up by Matthew Holness. And there's a TV show about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. It's a British comedy from a long time ago, but if you have watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, you would know Matthew Holness as the dad of the kids, so he's in all the flashbacks. But yes, I had to get his book because he released a book as if it's written by Garth. Garth is a legendary horror writer. He's written more books than he's ever read, as he said, hundreds of books. So these are some of his short stories put together. And I don't know, I just think it's so funny. So like in the blurb here it says, dare you crack open the TerrorTome, mind the spine. When horror writer Nick Steen gets sucked into a cursed typewriter by the terrifying typeface, Dark Lord of the Prolix, the hellish visions inside his head are unleashed for real. Forced to fight his escaping imagination, now leaking out of his own brain, Nick must defend the town of Stalkford from his own fictional horrors, including avascular necrosis-obsessed serial killer Nelson Strain and Nick's dreaded thruppleganger, the Dark Third. And it's just, it's very, very silly, and I know he also read in character the audiobook, so that would be fun again sometime, but he even has a whole bio about Garth Marenghi in here, but it is a comedy horror, and if you're interested in comedy horrors, then I highly recommend, he just has the silliest writing, so, and definitely check out the TV show maybe beforehand if you're interested in the book, because it's straight up Garth Marenghi. But those are the physical books I bought, so let's get into the audiobooks, and I'll put the cover up on here. So the first audiobook I got, I should say, so this is what I got. My dad got me Wet Moon for Christmas. I basically bought this for us for Christmas, and then Alok's mum got us a bunch of credits from Audible. So these Audible books are from the credits that we got as gifts. So first we have Paladins Grace by Kingfisher, not Kingfisher. And I was interested in this, first, I really loved the cover, and Paladins are always interesting, and I was looking at recommendations for fantasy, and I saw this recommendation of, are you sick of the toxic 18-year-old, hot, super special 18-year-olds with smooth banter romances and fantasy? Basically, ACOTAR, I guess. And instead, this book is about well-meaning, damaged middle-aged people trying to patch together adequate lives. So we meet Stephen, who is a broken paladin living only for the chance to be useful before he dies, and then he encounters a fugitive named Grace in an alley, and there's an assassination attempt gone wrong, and now the pair must navigate a web of treachery and spies and poisoners, and a cryptic killer stalks one step behind. And it sounds really good. Apparently, there's a great, slow burn romance between these two middle-aged, broken people who are just trying to put it back together. in a fantasy world of paladins and things like that and magic. There's a lot of magic in here apparently, so that's why I picked that one up, because I do love that more of a, if I'm gonna do a romance, I prefer this kind of thing. It's like in Stormlight Archive with Dalinar and Navani, so they're like middle-aged people who get together, and I like the idea of that. So that's why I picked up Paladins Grace. The second one, I'm just gonna go all over here. They're just what I have up on my tab from Goodreads. The second one here is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I don't think I've read any Stephen King, and I thought, yeah, this would be a fun place to start. My papa, his favorite author was Stephen King, and it was kind of like the thing of like every birthday and every Christmas, we'd just get him a Stephen King book. Super easy when your favorite author is prolific. So, but I was interested in Salem's a lot because I really loved Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass TV show, and a lot of people said Salem's Lot was similar because it's about vampires, and I love stuff about vampires. And I think it's also like a small town, maybe seaside, but yeah, I don't know. It sounded interesting. I was like, I'll give a vampire book a try because I do love vampires. As like, they're probably my favorite like baddie, although there's a lot of bad vampires out there. I'm interested to see how Stephen King does vampires instead. So got Salem's Lot. Then we picked up, well, Luck just picked this up as I'm filming this, but it wasn't out like to buy list, which is Eversion by Alastair Reynolds. So I think Luck has read some Alastair Reynolds, but it's basic. This says here he's a master at the space opera. So if you don't know what a space opera is, it's basically Star Wars is what space opera as a genre is. And I don't know, Eversion looked cool. I think it came out last year. And I don't know, it came up on a list of like 2022 sci-fis to read as I was just looking around like book recommendations. And oh, so they're in a crew and they're adventuring across the galaxy in search of a mysterious artifact, and things keep going wrong. And then it's kind of linked. This is what also drew me to it, is that it's linked to a bunch of historical stuff. So in the 1800s, a sailing ship crashes off the coast of Norway. In the 1900s, a Zeppelin explores an icy canyon in Antarctica. And now in the future, this spaceship sets out for an alien artifact. And each excursion goes horribly wrong. And I think that's kind of cool. Like, I want to see how it links into those like 1800, 1900 events, because that's why else would they be put into the blurb? So I think that would be really interesting. And we love a space opera, like just crazy sci-fi, you know? So that's that one. And then I picked up Babel, or the necessity of violence, an arcane history of the Oxford Translators Revolution by R.F. Kuang. This was obviously a big book last year, and I just finally want to read it. I was putting off getting it because I know it's full of footnotes, and I thought maybe I would need the book for that. But I did see that the audiobook has two narrators, so I'm wondering if one does the book and the other does the footnotes. We'll see how it works out. I'm fine with footnotes. That's what history reading is all about. So it makes sense that this is full of footnotes because it's like, it is about academia and sort of, it says it's a thematic response to the secret history. And so it grapples with the dark academia ideas, but with student revolutions, colonial resistance, language and translation as a dominating tool of the British Empire. So Kuang is also just sort of pulling apart and deconstructing those ideas of, well, the academic ivory tower, right? Especially when it comes to Oxbridge, well, Oxford in this case. So I'm very interested to read that, and you could probably tell why I picked this one. If you know me, it's the academia thing. I don't know much about the translation language groups, but I think it'll be really fun and interesting to read. So I'm going to try out the audiobook and hopefully it works out with the footnotes. So something a bit lighter next. This is Station Eternity by Lafferty, and it is a science fiction mystery thriller. It's about Mallory Veridian, who is always embroiled in murder cases that only she has the insight to solve. But she's tired of it. She doesn't want to do that anymore. She's sick of it. Sick of him being embroiled in murder. So she moves to a sentient space station, takes refuge there, and surely the murders will stop if her only company is alien beings. But there comes a murder, obviously. Yeah, so basically it's only aliens in a sentient ship, and then they allow other human guests to arrive, and it's all thrown into peril. And she gets thrown into the middle of an extraterrestrial whodunit. And I thought this would be a lighter sci-fi, just a silly one. It says it's number 1 of the mid-solar murders. So I assume this will become a series about Mallory trying to solve space murders. So this could be fun. I just think it's a lighter sci-fi and just a bit of a silliness. So it's like reading a silly murder mystery or romance, but it's still in the genre that I enjoy, because I prefer to be reading genre stuff. The next one is another sci-fi. This is The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang. This is cool. It's actually tagged as queer fiction. So this is a story about Misery Nomaki, who's she, they pronouns. And she's a nobody from nowhere mining planet who possesses the rare stone working powers of a saint. So that's cool. So we have sort of analogy of a saint and manifesting things here. Manifest in those succumbing to void madness. I don't know. You can see why I'm picking this book up. When the voice of an angel or a very convincing delusion leads Misery to the center of the empire, they find themselves trapped between 2 powerful and dangerous factions, each hoping to use Misery to win a terrible war. So I liked that it kind of linked this sort of Catholic stuff of saints and angels, but is actually delusion, is it prophecy? But then put it into the sci-fi realm. And then on top of that, you've got the LGBT stuff. And I think it would be a fun little mix. I'm very much drawn to the Catholic parallels, Catholic themes in books, because my PhD was on Catholic stuff. So I just think it's cool. It's very Neo Genesis Evangelion as well. So I think this one sounds fun. Another big book from last year. So it was a nominee for Best Science Fiction in Goodreads. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. All right, and the rest of the audiobooks, I got 3 more. And these are continuing books in series that I started. So the first one is the second book of In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. And it's called In the Shadow of Young Girls in Flower. So the big thing about, so I finished Swan's Way in 2021, and so I finally want to read the second book. I would have read more, but Audible took, originally the series was free on Audible, and then they took it off being free and they made a different version of it free. But I had already started the first book with a specific narrator and translation, and now it's a different narrator and translation because they're French books, if you didn't know. And to the free section, I'm like, no, I want to continue on with what I've already read, because then it might not fit together in my head. So yeah, I finished out 2021, and I finally used a credit to buy the second one. I was kind of buying other things with the credits instead. And so originally I read the first half of the Swan's Way in a uni course that was it was co-made between the English department and the European Studies department. I can't talk today. And it was great texts of Western civilization, and we read Italian, French, and German books. And Swan's Way just ended up being the last book in the course, and by the time I got to it, I was super busy with essays and stuff like that, so I only read enough that I needed for the exam. It didn't mean I didn't like it, but then over the years, I just kept trying to read it and just I couldn't in a book form. So 2021, when I started reading audiobooks, I was like, hey, that's a book I could try. And it's just so much better in audiobook for me. It went by so much faster, and I finished Swan's Way. I actually restarted the whole book. And I'm excited to see where it keeps going. It's like I think it's basically the life of this one person, like from a young child through the whole life, through all the books. So the second book is adolescence, and it's the narrator's memories of Paris and Normandy. So I think there's a lot of like, adolescent stuff in here, and it's French, you know, so, but it'll be interesting to continue on with this life of this narrator. I don't think he has a name, but he talks about his relationships with his grandmother and with the Swan family, thus Swan's Way. So Swan is a man who's friends with his parents as he's a child. And yeah, it's set around Proust's time. It's kind of set about his life, but so I think it's the early 1900s, which it's set. But I just really enjoy it, and I love the prose. I think it's so beautiful, so I wanted to continue on with that. Part of my like classic stuff, because I do enjoy classics. It's really just like contemporary books I'm not into. So the next book that I'm continuing on is the number 4 book of Wheel of Time, which is The Shadow Rising by Robert Jordan. If you read my reading journal book rant thing in Planmas, you would have heard me talk about the first 3 books of Wheel of Time, and I do find some of the characters kind of annoying, and kind of this world of like, they're called up to do big things, but Robert Jordan's idea is that people would be like, no, I don't want to. Rather than in comparison to Tolkien, where everyone's like, all right, I'll take up the mantle and do it. But in Wheel of Time, no one wants to do it. And they love telling you about it. So it's a little frustrating, but I'm still enjoying it. I still want to see where the story is going and what happens to the characters. I think the women have gotten a lot better, but Rand and Matt, I don't mind Perrin, but Rand and Matt is still very complainy, but they are supposed to be like 13, 14, so this is the 4th book, and I picked that up, so I continue reading. I'm definitely one of those people where if it's a series, I'm only going to get 1 book at a time. Like, the Wheel of Time is like 14 books, so I'm not going to buy all 14 in one go, and then what if I find out on this book or the 5th book that I'm done with it? So 1 book at a time when it comes to series. So that's the same for this one, although this might be different, but the final book that I got in this haul for the Christmas stuff is the 2nd book of The Expanse, Calibans War by James S.A. Corey, although that is an alias. It's actually 2 writers. I actually looked it up, and I thought their writing process was really interesting. So you can look that up if you want to. It's on their Wikipedias about how they write together. But yeah, The Expanse was a TV show, and Luck had already read a couple of the books before it came out. And so we watched most of the TV show now, and except for like the last season or even 2 seasons, we just never caught up. And at this point we have to restart because it's been so long. But yeah, last year I did finish up, and you'll see, I'm going to do a book talk next month, which will catch you up on all the books that I've read since my Planmas video, and that will include the 1st book in The Expanse. So I'll talk about it then. But I got the 2nd book because I really enjoyed it. I was just really into the way it was written and the characters, and I don't know, I just found myself really enjoying reading it. So I definitely wanted to pick up Calibans War, and I think it changes up from the 1st book, but you do still have the main character of James Holden, who he's from. So The Expanse, if you want a little information about it before the book talk, it's basically a hard science fiction, so it's mostly physically possible, like actual science could happen to make this universe existing. So unlike space operas, which you have like hyperdrives and stuff, this is a bit more down to earth and what is physically possible for us. But there is sort of like the main thing is a guy somehow finds out how to travel faster through space, and so humans use it to first populate Mars. So there's a whole planet of Mars with humans. They all live underground because they're attempting to terraform it, but they haven't yet. And then there's a whole bunch of humans who now live in the outer belt, as it's called, and this is like Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and they all live on like those moons and things, and they mine for resources, and they live on space stations. And people who live out there and born in the outer belt, over time, like because it's fake gravity and it's all different, they have kind of changed physically to super tall, willowy people. So that you can tell someone from the outer belt versus someone from Mars or Earth, and there's kind of like this class separation between those people. So basically, it's humans just in the solar system kind of sci-fi instead of fantastical sci-fi. And James Holden is from Earth, but he's working on a spaceship in the outer belt. And there's a whole stuff happens. If you know about the TV show, it is on Amazon Prime, and I do recommend watching it because it's really good. It is different to the books, but not in a terrible way. And the first book is like 2 male point of views, but I know from the second book that they go out. There's more points of views than that now. I think there's 4 a book instead. But yes. And there's like, it's a lot of political stuff, I will say, because it's hard science, it's political, but it's very like, I think it's still very exciting, very adventurous. And I find that like the mystery of the politics really interesting. So that's what I picked up. And those are all the books I'm hauling for basically my December Christmas book haul. And what I've sort of set up for most of the year. I set my Goodreads challenge to 30 books, and well, right here I've got like 7 that will be super easy to read pretty quickly, so I think I should be able to make that goal. But that's what we're starting for with the year. We have a bunch more credits on Audible, and there's a few physical books that I want to buy that are like, we basically said it, if the audiobook is less than 10 hours, then we should get it digital or ebook, because it's just not worth the price for such a short audiobook. So I want to pick up Legends in Lattes, and I also want to pick up, where is it? Let's go to the page. It might have it in it. I think it actually won the sci-fi Goodreads thing. Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Sea of Tranquility and Legends and Lattes I want to pick up physically, but other than that, I think I'm pretty set for a while for audiobooks, and we'll see how my series go along as well. And I guess I'll throw in a bonus. We did back Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter last year for his secret projects, and the first book came on January 1st, so I'm just about finished reading that, which was Tress of the Emerald Sea. But we have 3 more books to come this year. They're kind of spread out by quarter, so that's also very exciting to read coming up. But yeah, that is everything for this book haul. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. There won't be so much book stuff because I'm not really hauling books or anything, but I will have a book talk, as I will call it, in Feb, where I'm just going to sit down with a drink and we'll chat about what I've been reading since mid-December, basically, up until that point, and I might do those regularly. But yeah, otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.